So now let me get this straight. The NCAA will strip wins and national titles from USC due to Reggie Bush's parents getting some kickbacks. They will strip a punter named Donald De La Haye of his football scholarship for his YouTube channel and tell a kid like NC State transfer Braxton Beverly that since you enrolled in classes at Ohio State in May while Thad Matta was still there and started taking classes but then decided to transfer, you're going to have to sit out a whole year even though you couldn't envision the primary reason that you went to the school to begin with was because of the head coach who was no longer there. Or if Thad Matta, if he wasn't quitting, would have taken another job, he would have been able to do that without sitting out the year, but the kid still gets screwed. We're basically penalizing a kid for enrolling in classes even though it's all supposed to be about preparing the professionals that aren't athletes for their lives after college. The NCAA on Friday came down with one of the most ridiculous things I have ever seen. After years of investigation and millions of dollars spent by North Carolina to defend themselves, absolutely no punishment was issued to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Zero, zip, nada. Whereas, even though there was widespread evidence of massive academic fraud over a 2-decade-plus period that went all throughout many different levels of that institution of alleged higher learning, ultimately because those same benefits were afforded to non-student athletes as student athletes, basically the general student population, that makes it okay. Unbelievable. Just completely unbelievable. What a sham the NCAA is, what a joke the NCAA is, how unbelievably ridiculous that after all of this time, nothing happened. So basically, Louisville should have just made escorts and strippers and sex parties available to the entire student body. Right? Right? Why would any school force their students to take real classes? Athletes, non-athletes, doesn't matter. Because clearly the NCAA doesn't give a shit. Why should the schools give a shit? I mean, how ridiculous is that? That the University of North Carolina got zero punishment from the NCAA because they offered fake BS classes to athletes and non-athletes. Widespread, proven institutional academic fraud goes completely unpunished. A kid makes a YouTube channel and talks about his time as a punter. And even though technically anybody in the world can go make a YouTube channel, we strip him of his scholarship. But North Carolina, you're okay. Hell, at this point in time, school boosters should just buy cars for athletes and non-athletes alike, because that'll make that okay, right? When you're recruiting student athletes, then why don't they not only just offer money to them, but sit there and offer certain kickbacks and money to non-students as well? Sure, that means a little bit more money out of pocket, but ultimately what this basically indicates in large sense is that anything goes when it comes to this. As long as you make it available to anybody, and if you're going to say, well, this involves money or other impermissible kickbacks, why would that make that much difference from a legal standpoint? And if we say, well, the bylaws cover those type of things, but not this like institutional academic fraud that is that widespread and that deeply rooted, then ultimately why does the NCAA have any bylaws? And how the hell does something like this not have the ability to be covered by anything under the NCAA and its governing body? You basically had a school for 2+ decades commit widespread, again, academic institutional fraud with absolutely zero consequences. And some are going to say that they got zero punishment because they're UNC and they make money for the NCAA. And there could be something to that. Others are going to point to the NCAA bylaws and say they should have never done it to begin with. They should have never investigated it to begin with because they knew it was a complete and total waste of time. And there's something to that too. But we could penalize students Because you don't get any of that money, bitches. That's got to come through us, and we want it all. We can still fight to this day about using people's likenesses after they're done with school, where there would be no more ramifications to affecting their amateur status. But if a school cheats across the board, it's okay. My simple thought here for North Carolina is, if it was going to be this fucking easy, you probably wish you were doing it the entire time. And then furthermore, you have to start to wonder with a lot of these big schools that have big-time football or basketball programs, when somebody says they got a degree from this school or that school, you have to start to wonder, how many fake classes did you freaking take? Because I promise you what North Carolina did is only the tip of the iceberg. There are plenty of other offenders out there. And for the NCAA to talk all this time and run all these ads talking about all these people that go to school that go pro in something other than sports, you're just basically saying those degrees in large part aren't worth the paper that they're printed on, because you can't prove that the classes they're taking are valid and legitimate. So your whole marketing strategy is a complete fraud, just like the NCAA is a complete fraud. I wonder if Roy Williams and the Carolina basketball team are going to celebrate with a stripper party where the entire student body is invited. Because they might as well at this point. I mean, they were able to get away, the school, with 2+ decades of fake freaking classes. And look it up online. You'll see there's this paper that's a paragraph long talking about what happened with Rosa Parks. It got an A-. Even with the grammatical errors in there, it got an A- for one freaking paragraph. These kids didn't even have to go to class. They only had to write one final paper. And in often cases, probably was written for them any damn ways. This is unbelievable. We will punish students by making them sit a year if a coach leaves, but the coach doesn't have to sit out a year if they choose to go somewhere else. That's ridiculous. You punish Braxton Beverly in large part for going to school. While that's the rule is stupid. You stripped a punter of his scholarship because he was making YouTube videos and didn't want to stop doing it, nor should he have had to stop freaking doing it. This delusion that these kids in college, even if they get scholarship, are well off and have a lot of money is just complete and total bunk. It is horse shit. But go to fake classes, have this whole set of fake classes, make it available to students and athletes and non-athletes alike, and you're good. If I'm another school looking at this, I'm jealous of North Carolina. Besides all the built-in advantages that they have being North Carolina, I'm sitting there saying, why the hell didn't I think of this all these years before? And what would stop anybody else from doing it at this point in time? The answer is nothing. The NCAA is ridiculous. They're hypocrites. They are so many things. They're a freaking fraud. If you can't crack down on institutional academic fraud that is so widespread over decades, then why does that governing body exist?